Yeah, g'day guys. This is part two in our Alphabet People Transgender Agenda. An interview with Jennifer Villac, who is behind the trans agenda. Let's keep going, guys.
You can't change that. So the ideology is promoting the idea that you can, right? So, and they're driving this ideology into children's schools, not only their schools, they're driving it into their entertainment, their social media platforms, their schools, all the organizations that, that cater to children are all jumping on board with this ideology. And this has only happened in the past 10 years. I mean, before this, we didn't hear about this word. We didn't hear transgenderism. We didn't even hear transsexual. 2014, Laverne Cox was on the cover of Time magazine, owned by Mark Benioff. And, it announced a transgender tipping point when there was really nothing preceding that to warrant that would be a tipping point. 2014. It was just like dropped fully formed into the culture. And then from then on, it was just like a chant over and over and over and over and over again. You heard transgender rights are human rights, trans rights are human rights. These huge NGOs, these very huge, powerful non-governmental organizations serving the LGB community worked hand in hand with international law firms like Hogan Lovells and Dentons and Reuters Next Law and Open Society Foundation lawyers to start to create legal guides for transgender children. So they start to build this edifice of transgender children to drive this narrative, that you can be born in the wrong body. And so we heard all these initial stories about these poor children born in the wrong bodies, right? Which is now, a decade later has morphed into just express yourself, right? You can be male, you can be female, you can be non-binary, you can, have both. Later has morphed into just express yourself, right? You can be male, you can be female, you can be non-binary, you can, have both your genitalias. And this is all about self-expression now. So it's really morphed in the course of 10 years into the right to augment yourself in whatever way you see fit. Bainbridge's technological religious cult meets Rothblatt's fetish. And they both take off together, and they're both now in the techno-medical field here, right? And they drive this religion, and it is a cult. They're driving it over media, and people are buying it. I mean, sane people that are intelligent people are going, yes, you can be born in the wrong body. This project has, is backed by big finance, big pharma, big tech, and all the corporations, international finance houses, international law firms. They're all driving the same narrative. You have to ask yourself, why would this happen in the span of 10 years? When human rights movements don't act like that, they don't come up like that. They come up against these entities, corporate entities, to fight oppression, not to, to offer them, more profiteering. So all of these people at the top are all thinking about this same thing and thinking about it the same way. Do you know what I mean? It's like Rothblatt and Bainbridge got together. They have this ideology that they're forming. Rothblatt has actually written about it. He's written about the technological takeover of human reproduction. He's written about transgenderism being an on-ramp to transhumanism and how to drive that. He's given conferences all over on how to do that. So he's right there. He's starring in this movie, and he's trying to drive this ideology through our institutions. Okay, so then you have all these gay men who suffered through the AIDS crisis, even if they didn't suffer themselves. They watched their brothers, their cousins, die. I mean, the LGBT human rights movement was very, very young when AIDS hit, right? So immediately the medical industrial complex swoops in and is part of this movement now, right? And these philanthropic organizations come up to serve them, right? And to serve the public. So once AIDS dissipates, though, you have these mammoth what were then LGB organizations, teach them about, safe sex and how the thing is, how AIDS is transferred, and, help for people, so they were getting all this money, and Big Pharma is profiting off of these AIDS drugs. And then suddenly, whoosh, there goes AIDS, Then the issue became gay marriage for these organizations, right? And late 90s, early 2000 is when the two major what is now LGBT organizations came up in the United States. You have Tim Gill founded the Gill Foundation, and then you have John Stryker starts Arcus Foundation, which is probably the most significant LGBT organization in the world. Arcus Foundation, as well as Gill Foundation, send millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to our educational institutions, our medical institutions, prisons, organizations that serve the community, churches, they're everywhere. Their money is everywhere. And it's contingent, though, that funding mechanism is contingent upon adopting this ideology of gender ideology. And then these trans organizations started to come up. And this wasn't to serve transgender people or people that thought they were born in the wrong body, but it was to destigmatize this fetish of adult men within the corporate world, within the community, within schools. When you're sending millions and millions of dollars to these cash-strapped institutions, like universities and schools and stuff, and all they have to do is get on board with this progressive ideology. They've been told it's progressive. Who cares? It's part of the LGB, right? They don't really think about what they're doing. And then at the same time, the media is promoting this as a human right. It's a human right. It's a human right. Well, there's tens of thousands of children that are identifying as transgender now. And you have thousands of children on these puberty blockers that disrupt your growth, ruin your bones, provide all sorts of complications, water on the brain, et cetera, et cetera. And they usually graduate to cross-sex hormones, which are even more dangerous. And they're going to be taking those for a lifetime, and they're going to be sterilized. And I think the first children's gender clinic came up in 2007. And now we have hundreds of them all over the United States. Where did they all come from and why? Nobody examines the issue. Why is this happening? Why are suddenly children committing suicide in droves? They're jumping out of buildings because they want to be the opposite sex. We never heard about this before. If pharma could have made bank on this 50 years ago, we would have heard about it. You know what I mean? This is totally a top-down arrangement of power, and comes again from the highest echelons of society in finance. And the founder of Outright Leadership, which is the business networking arm of the LGB, comes out of banking. The guy that runs it comes out of banking. John Stryker, head of Arcus Foundation, comes out of banking. There's no Harvey Milk character here. Do you know what I mean? There's no grassroots activist here. These are all uber businessmen. So you have a profiteering motive, absolutely. Drugs, surgeries, surgery equipment, and not just the hormones and the puberty blockers, but you have antibiotics, you have anti-rejection medications, you have myriad surgeries that people want to have after they have this attack, basically, on their sex, a medical attack on their sex. Then they want to get their neck done, and they want to get their Adam's apple gone, and they want to have their jaw shaved off, and it's like a compulsion. And it's driven through technology. It's a consumerist orgy, and we're the ones being consumed. People, our sex, is being actually deconstructed. It's not just an idea, an ideology. It's actually happening. They are removing young women's reproductive organs at major hospitals. So sex is actually medically being deconstructed, as well as ideologically and legally and linguistically in the culture. If you convince a whole generation of children that they can choose their sex, they're not going to know where they come from. They're not going to know who or what they are, because we as a species are connected to the real world, to the natural world, by sex. That's how we're tethered to everything else. Everything in the universe, in all the, in the world, in the biological world, is reproduction, regeneration, death, regeneration, death, regeneration, death, right? But you're, teaching children that they can live forever, that they can choose their sex, that they can choose whatever they want to choose. And this is madness. It's absolute madness because it goes against the grain of reality. Why are they driving an ideology of physical dissociation from your sex to reality? This is what's going on here. Why is this happening? Confront that over and over and over again. Well, it's all part of the medical tech sector that's good. They're going to profit from. If you sterilize a whole generation of children, they're going to need reproductive services, right? You can't just go make a baby in your backyard with your partner, right? So, yeah, this is really an occupation. I mean, as a feminist, I see it as an occupation of womanhood. It's not just using our biology like it's used in prostitution or it's used in the sex trades. This is like the pinnacle of objectification. We're going to take your biology, we're going to wear it as a costume, first of all, and second of all, we're going to transfer this reproductive capacity that you have to the tech sector. And this is why women are being legally erased in language and law. They just took woman, the word woman, out of the dictionary, in the Cambridge Dictionary. And they replaced it with anybody that feels like a woman. And the way that they do that to transfer the human reproduction to the tech sector is through all the big fertility treatments that are out there now. Freezing your eggs and freezing your sperm and surrogacy and they're talking, they're researching womb implants, womb transplants. It's profiteering and it's social control in the sense that they really literally want to break sex apart, the boundary between the males and females of our species. They want to break this apart. They perceive this as progress. You will be unburdened by sexual stereotypes, by sexual inequalities. Mothers and women won't have to have children. It's like, look at the tampon, you know what I mean? Suddenly women could leave the house, you didn't have to sit in your backyard on a stack of rags, It's technology, it's the advancement of technology to improve, our lives, but we never get a say in any of that, We don't get to say, we don't get to decide, we don't get all the information. This is all elites deciding this for us, right? And it's, it rides the bullet train of the market, Everybody is profiteering off of this now, even if they have no idea what it's about. Transgender modeling agencies, gender fluid makeup, photographers taking pictures of transgender children. It's everywhere. And this same message is being driven into their grade schools. By second grade, they're learning about gender identity, taking hormones. And this is all brought in under anti-bullying programs. These programs were passed by Obama and funded by the Pritzker family, one of the largest, one of the most wealthy families in America. There's many of them. Jennifer Pritzker was an Army colonel. He purports to be a female and runs around with synthetic sex characteristics of a female. And he drives this ideology into the psychiatric departments of major universities, into other medical institutions, gender hospitals, the military, et cetera, et cetera. And his company, Tawani Foundation, is partnered with Squadron Capital, which is a medical device company. So he's following the same trajectory of Arcus Foundation, right? Stryker Medical is a medical supply corporation, right? And they're going to be profiting off of these surgeries, not just so-called gender surgeries, but human augmentation.
And that's session 2 on our Alphabet People Transgender interview with Jennifer Bilek. Come back, guys, for part 3 of Alphabet People Transgender Agenda with ProBrick exclusive. For more information on this, questionable subject. Bye for now.